Howdy all Muglex Lives. I think it's time to play a little Minecraft. Whew, alright. So, I have been at this for hours. Hours. Um, whew, hours. I, literally, I don't know. I guess I can't say literally. I don't know how many hours I've been at this. I do know that I have watched, let's see, 5 or 6 episodes of Breaking Bad and 3 movies today. Um, Not all in a row, but while I was watching those, I was working on this. So I've been at this a long time today. Too fast. Too fast. But it does look like maybe things are getting a little closer to. I'm not sure. I feel like there's still some areas where I get these dudes. See, right there's one coming to shoot me right now. Um, and so I'm assuming they must be spawning underneath, and so I've still got to clean out underneath this place. I've died a few times. I've lost a bunch of my stuff. My bow's gone. My pick, which pick do I have now? Yeah, my regular pick is gone. I don't know what else I had on me, but it's gone. Gone. Um, I um, I attempted to. I can't even get down there at the moment. I attempted to. Let's make a spot through here. I attempted to do a little work down below here, and it's really bad under there. And so I think what's going to happen is uh, that oh man, I need more fuel. Oh, I've got some right here. Is that I'm going to have to um, clean out the layer above the water, like the bottom layer of the temple here, and maybe I can poke holes and just slowly clean it out. I don't know. It's it's not been great, for sure. There's a lot of death today, and I'm not too happy about losing my stuff, but I am happy about getting uh, a huge chunk of the water draining done. Most of the water draining is done, I believe. I don't really know a whole lot about making a guardian grinder like I'm attempting to do here. So I'm probably gonna have to go take a gander at some before I get too far in here. I know that they spawn in the water, and I know that well, that's about all I know. I was told, and I guess I never realized this, but my nephew must have gotten a book on Minecraft, and I thought it was interesting. He told me, I don't know if I agree with him, but he said that the book says that they're robots, and that's why they shoot lasers, and I guess they don't suffocate in the air like the other water animals. Um, so I don't think that's going to be an issue necessarily. I'm curious though if you can set up an auto grinder of some kind with them. I wish they had some blades of some kind. I know I've been playing the modded Better Than Wolves, and that has saw blades in it. And So I do want to get into the um, I do want to see if I can set up a grinder of some kind that doesn't involve me standing here swinging a sword, but it might just be me swinging a sword. Like maybe I can figure how many layers of lava blades they can drop through or something. I know that doesn't work with my pigs anymore because they changed some of the rules on that. I gotta make sure I don't bust out my ladder there. But yeah, this took so many trips down to cooking up sponges and just I had to go out to the desert and get sand and I came back. I gave up on the rocks and I switched it out for dirt. And I'd do a few, and I would take out the water, and then I would cook the sponges, and then I'd do a few more, and then you know knock down the sand, take out the dirt, do the next little batch, and it took forever. Like I said, hours and hours. And this isn't the only day I worked on it, right? I've done a couple of videos. I've worked in between those videos. It was a massive, massive task for sure. Um, I I honestly think I should have just stuck with my original filled in with sand and dug out area that I had previously done, and just built a tiny grinder. Oh man! But now I need the XP from a grinder to replace. Oh no! Look at that. That block up there is gonna be a pain in the butt to get to. Oh man. Let's get that before we get too far in here. So I did want to talk about a couple of things today, and they are spoilery. So hang on to your hats. There's some spoilers. I guess we'll start with The Mandalorian. All right, I've been watching The Mandalorian. I'm not impressed. It's sort of fun sometimes. It's not. It's not as exciting as I thought it would be, and it's definitely not as. I wanted something with a deeper storyline, and there is definitely not a deep storyline to The Mandalorian. And that's the Star Wars. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the Star Wars series on Disney Plus that they started, and it's okay. I do I still have a shovel? Yeah. I I had hoped, I guess, that because I don't know I like the idea of Boba Fett, right? And I find him to be an interesting character. What little bit I know about the Mandalorian makes me super curious about Boba Fett, right? And then I guess they kind of gave him a backstory in the Clone Wars, and so that was all interesting and whatnot. But I don't know. I kind of wanted to see something along those lines, and so the Mandalorian is not along those lines. Like it started out like it was kind of going to be, and I think I talked about a little bit, but I have to talk about it some more. Uh, is like when I was a kid, right? There was the original trilogy, right? I think I was like a newborn when the first movie came out, um, and so I was like in kindergarten when Return of the Jedi came out, and so I grew up with the original trilogy, and then along comes the prequels, and I hated them. In fact, it was even before that that I started wondering what was going on with with George Lucas, basically, because he had done some things to the original movies that I just found to be strange. Like, I am a fan of director's cuts. And so, it was cool to me that there was original scenes that didn't make it into Star Wars that they were going to add in, right? That's cool. I wouldn't mind seeing a director's cut. And Star Wars has gone through many, many redistributions, I guess. And so, like the original theatrical version, right, which people are still hoping they'll release. Well, somewhere along the lines, they did a cleanup of those, and I'm not against the cleanup necessarily that they did. Although it would be cool if you could still get the original theatrical, but they show things like how they did the special effects, and so obviously now we use computers, but 40 years ago they didn't have. Wow, what happened to my voice there? They didn't have the computers to do the CGI like we do now. Not that necessarily the CGI we do now is great, but um, and so they do things like record the people and then record models over the people, right? And or reverse of that. And so they just use the same film and record on it twice, basically. Or they would play movies on screens that you would see through the cutouts, um, like windshields and stuff. Doesn't necessarily look the greatest, but that was one of the tricks they used in Star Wars: A New Hope, right? The very first movie. And so what they did was they went in and they cleaned up like areas where you could see the original movie that they took a film of. And so like it's Empire Strikes Back, I guess, is the one I'm thinking of. Um, so they've got like they go after the AT-AT walkers, right, with the speeders, and they show you images from inside the cockpit. And so what they did was they put their minis on the table, and then they run their camera across the minis like something's flying at the minis. And then they would maybe not reuse the same film, but they would film the same thing, but with the actor um, inside the cockpit. I mean, not the same thing, but they would film the actor inside the cockpit like he was flying, uh, you know, across the snowfield toward the AT-AT walkers, and then they would overlay the AT-AT walker footage, which was miniatures on a table, with the mocked up cockpit footage containing an actor. Well, then what you get is you get bleed through, and so they would have you could see the AT-AT walkers and stuff through the cockpit, like the actual physical form of the cockpit. And so they went in and they cleaned that up with computers, and so I didn't have a problem with that part. But and I like the idea that there were scenes filmed and that they were going to add those back in, or they did some new stuff that I actually liked, which was like when they're in Cloud City, right, in Return of the Jedi, or is that's Empire Strikes Back. Um, and so in the original, they're just like white hallways, and you don't really ever get to see outside. Well, then they went back in with the computers and they removed a portion of the hallways and they gave you footage from the outside, and so that's kind of cool. I like to see more. Man, I put a lot of sand into these walls. I like to see more of the world building that's involved, and so that's cool. And but man, trust me, this is leading back to the Mandalorian. I have not forgotten my point. I know sometimes I forget my point, but this time I have not forgotten my point. And so the problem I have is that somewhere in there, George Lucas decided that Star Wars was for children. And I'm not saying that children can't enjoy it. I always have. I'm not saying that it's the deepest storyline that ever existed. But you know, it was not directed at 6-year-olds. Uh, you know, it was supposed to be a serious story. It just happens to be sci-fi, and so it was a serious story. And oh no, I totally took out my ladder. Whoops. Way to go, guy. Way to go. You specifically said you didn't want to take out your ladder, and then what do? Take out your ladder. And so, but somewhere in there, it just wasn't just him. It was also Steven Spielberg. The two of them went crazy. They made a South Park episode. Ouch. Oh no, I forgot. For some reason, I don't take fall damage. I really need to start a new game to see if it's just my game is broken. Man, do I have any... I've used all my lumber to make chests. Oh, here's some ladders. Good. And so they went back and they made changes to their movies. And I don't mean cleaning up or adding in scenes or adding in some extra special effects, but they made actual changes to the movies to reduce the violence in their films. And I know they did something to Indiana Jones, but I don't remember. The only ones I really remember are Han Solo shot first in the original film, and they decided that Han Solo shouldn't shoot first. And so there's like 4 versions of Han Solo not shooting first now, because they keep expanding the amount of time between when Greedo shoots and when Han shoots. And so whatever the deal is with that, I don't understand why that's an issue. I guess that they want Han Solo to be a heroic figure. I never took him as that. He's a smuggler. I didn't have a big issue with him being a smuggler, but so anyways, that was one. And then like Steven Spielberg went through and he took used the computer to remove guns from like the police in E.T. And so instead of pointing their weapons at the alien who may or may not be kidnapping children, he replaced their guns with walkie-talkies. And so that's a little bizarre to me, but that carries over into what they did to Star Wars. Is this it's got to be for children, and so they actually went in and one of the scenes that they added back into the movie was a scene with Jabba the Hutt, and just oh man, I've spent my whole time talking about Star Wars. I said there'd be spoilers, and all I'm doing is talking about the whole movie. So let's see if I can do this a little quicker. And so there's 2 scenes in the Star Wars: A New Hope that got added in. One is as you're coming into Mos Eisley with Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan, they added in a droid trying to pick up a heavy piece of metal, and when he can't do it, another droid laughs at him, so he punches that droid. It's silly. It has no purpose in the film other than to be silly. And I hate that. I hate that they thought that the movie needed that. As they're pulling into Mos Eisley after that scene, they added in some, I think it's Jawas with a dewback, which is a big lizard, and the dewback jerks up and pulls on its reins, and the Jawas are jerked around. Another funny scene that did not need to be added to the movie. Um, uh, Adding in dewbacks with the Imperial stormtroopers, and they're just standing there to add more life to the scene because they didn't have the ability to do that when the movie originally came out. Like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. It's a little weird to go in and re-edit your movie like that, but some extra special effects, not as bad. Adding funny to a movie that's not meant to be funny is weird to me. And um, and then, like I said, they changed the fact that Han shot first, because I guess they wanted him to be a more heroic figure. They And then they got this scene where Han Solo is speaking to Jabba the Hutt in a hangar. Now, when they originally filmed it, they didn't know what they wanted Jabba the Hutt necessarily to be. And so Jabba the Hutt was a man. And so Jabba the Hutt in the final version is not a man. Jabba the Hutt is a big worm guy, basically. And so there's no possible way for Han Solo to walk behind Jabba the Hutt. And so they decide to add back in that scene. But in the original movie, he walks behind Jabba the Hutt. And I mean, I feel like they could have cropped it and cut that part out where he's walking or something, but instead they added in, and when Jabba the Hutt is slithering, I don't know what worms do, slithering across the floor, Han Solo steps on him. Han Solo steps on his tail, and Jabba the Hutt makes a weird face because his tail got stepped on. Like, do you think that the bounty hunter that Han Solo, or the bounty hunter, the crime lord that Han Solo's afraid of, he would step on his tail like that and Jabba wouldn't do something about it? It's bizarre and it makes no sense. I like seeing the original scene. I don't think it needed to be turned into something silly like that. So this takes us to The Mandalorian. I wanted something serious. The Mandalorian can be serious, but for the most part is not. And that makes me a little sad. I wanted there to be, this awesome bounty hunter show, and it started off and okay, and then I'm like, this is a little weird, because you got the Mandalorian, and then there's his first guy is silly. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be that. And I'm like, maybe it won't be so bad. And so they're going on, and the guy's a little silly. But then he goes, and in Empire Strikes Back, they do a thing where they act like it's never really been done before, and they don't know if it'll even work. And that's when they place Han Solo in carbonite. And I don't remember how long it was after Han Solo was placed in carbonite that he finally came out of it, but I don't think it was very long. And The Mandalorian is supposed to take place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and somehow The Mandalorian has an entire sit-up on board his ship that allows him to place his bounties into carbonite for transport. And I mean, that was a thing that was on board Cloud City, that they used for whatever purposes on Cloud City, but it took a whole room to do, and now he just has it on his tiny little ship. And Oh yeah, I see what's going on there. Uh, and So yeah, and then and then they've got Baby Yoda. I know everybody loves Baby Yoda, but I'm not a big fan of Baby Yoda. It's all right. It's cutesy and all, whatever. It's Baby Yoda. Um, but it does weird things, and like this guy's supposed to be right. This big bad bounty hunter, the most fearsome bounty hunter in this section of the galaxy, and um, and he basically decides to like I can understand why he would side with Baby Yoda over the Empire. Maybe like I think maybe they didn't if this is why they didn't put it forward very well, but I think maybe like the Empire attacked his colony when they tried to wipe out the Mandalorians, and so now that he knows that his bounty is a baby, he can't turn a baby over to the Empire. Maybe, I don't know, because this dude never takes off his helmet. He's got no basic any kind of anything that you can tell what's going on in his head. And since it's not a very in-depth or serious story, you can't get a real feel for his motivations. And like we've seen him kill people, and then on one of the episodes he doesn't kill people. And so you're like, well, why didn't he kill those people? Like there's no reason for him not to kill those people. So why the sudden change? There's no real reason for it. So if you wonder what I'm doing here, I've got to clear this floor so that I can do that down there and stop the guardians from spawning underneath the temple. If they spawn underneath the temple, I don't know. Like I said, I've never done one of these before. Uh, so so yeah, I don't know. And then like the episode today, they had another thing which made no sense to me. Today, I watched today. Not that it was today's episode; it was Friday's episode. But so in one of the episodes, they met this woman, and she's a trooper. And honestly, I feel like I need to go back and watch that episode again because today she's got a tattoo on her face that I don't necessarily remember it being there. Um, but I assume it was, but I didn't see it before. But anyways, they made a big deal about her having to hide it. So her and this baby and the Mandalorian have all been together doing stuff, and so the baby is quite aware of what she is. And so for whatever reason, her and the Mandalorian are arm wrestling, and Baby Yoda decided to force choke her for arm wrestling. Like, I could get it if she was attacking him, um, but Baby Yoda knows her, has been around her quite a bit, and they were arm wrestling. Like, arm wrestling. I don't. And then the baby tried to kill her for arm wrestling. It's just bizarre to me. Like they fought each other. The baby was there when they got into a bar fight and didn't do anything. But now they're arm wrestling on board his ship, so the baby decides to force choke her. I, I don't know. It was a very out of place, weird thing to happen, and uh, I've seen other stuff by Jon Favreau that I like. He's the writer of these, um, and I'm just not getting into this Baby Yoda stuff. Um, I I guess I wanted a Netflix I wanted a Netflix style Marvel, you know, Daredevil, and instead I got half cartoon. It's not even as serious as the Clone Wars cartoon, not the one George Lucas did because that was terrible. Uh, but the Cartoon Network Clone Wars show. Anyways, so that's the Mandalorian. The other things I wanted to talk about, I saw the new Star Wars movie. It was pretty good. It wasn't amazing. It was better than I was expecting it to be because I had just been seeing people throw a fit about all the spoilers they had heard. I tried to look up the spoilers, but all I could find was this guy throwing a fit about how a woman was the hero of the Star Wars movie, and I don't know. I don't understand what difference that makes. I don't care who's the hero in the story. It seems like a weird thing to complain about, but he was. And So I didn't really get any spoilers coming in, but I do have to talk about spoilers. There was a weird thing in there that I don't think we've seen before, and that was so Ray and Kylo Ren are connected, right? We know that because that's been going on the last two movies. We don't know why. I'm really still not sure why. But so they're having force visions of each other. And I don't know if this happened in one of the previous movies, but her and Kylo are having force visions of each other at one point in the movie. And Kylo is looking for her, and she's on this planet, and they put a necklace around her for this celebration they're having. And Kylo, through the Force vision, pulls the necklace off, and then has it in his hand. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not aware the Force allows you to teleport things. Like, that's new. I'm pretty sure that's new. I don't think that's a thing. I don't know why that's in your movie. But they do it multiple times. I don't know why at the end of the movie she just didn't teleport Kylo to her when she needed him. I'm pretty sure she did duplicate her lightsaber. I kind of missed the part in there. She must have had both lightsabers and I just missed it. But she totally teleports a lightsaber to Kylo Ren at one point when he needs a lightsaber, and he teleported her necklace away from her at one point, and they're not in the same place. I'm not saying like, oof, they made it float from one place to the other. I mean like they're in different parts of the galaxy and he teleported her necklace away, and then they're at different points on the planet and she teleports a lightsaber to him. And I'm like, that's just not something that I expected to ever see. But other than that, it was pretty good. I like the plot. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. It's I do like the new ones better than the prequels because I did not like the prequels, but I do feel like they're just copies of the original trilogy. Sure, they're bigger because it's, modern and the special effects are bigger, but the root stories are still the exact same thing, and sometimes the same things happen. And so, like, in Return of the Jedi, uh, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader fight Emperor Palpatine, and Darth Vader gets thrown down a well of Force lightning. Um, or no, it's not even Force lightning. It's just lightning. There's like a well, like a power conduit on the thing they're on, and there's just like all these lightning bolts coming out of it, and so they get thrown down this thing. Guess what happens in this movie? Someone gets thrown down a conduit or a well full of lightning. I'm just like, that's the same thing that already happened. And then this one cracked me up. They're in some of the same places. the same things happen in the same places. The same people do the same things. And I'm just like, I know, like fans are big fans of the original. I'm a big fan of the original, but why don't you have your own storyline? I don't understand the lack of your own storyline. But no, it was pretty good. I totally watch it again. In fact, I think I liked it better than maybe any of the new Star Wars stuff. To be honest, there are parts I like in the other ones. I don't hate any of them. The only ones I hate are the prequels. I think they were terrible. They're silly. They don't match up with the technology present in the immediate, like 10 years later um, sequel movies, right? Or 18 years later sequel movies, whatever. The original would be the sequel to the prequels. And I find it super weird that none of the technology meets up, and uh, and just there, it's silly. There's a lot of silly in it that I hate. But yeah. And then the other thing I want to talk about is The Witcher. Wow, it was so good. So good. There's only like one episode I thought was maybe a little weak. Um, and Parts of it weren't is the issue. Parts of it weren't, but parts of it I felt were a little on the weak side. But Man, it was so good. I have not read the books. I've only played Witcher 1 and about half of Witcher 2. Not because I didn't like the games, but because I have terrible gaming ADD, I call it. I cannot concentrate on a single game unless I'm making a recording, and then I play it forever. Man, I I just it's so good. I guess it's based off of multiple short stories, and so um, oh man, you know what? This is the spot that I lit up, and then I'm gonna go through and tear this down because I want to get close to the edge. Do I need to be close to the edge? One, yeah, I do. I do need to be close to the edge to figure this out here. Ow, sand fell on me. Okay, so if this is sand, and that's sand, and this is your edge, right? One, two, space. So right here should be 3 spaces between. So that it will already handle this part. So then I need to go 1, 2, 3. This would be the. I guess I could mark these, right? So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This might make it easier on my brain. And so yeah, it was just so good. It's based off of I believe a bunch of short stories and maybe one of the books, and so it does feel a little like, hey, this is based off of short stories because there is a slight episodic nature to some of it. But they did it in an interesting way to me because uh, there's there's um there's an overarching storyline to it, and so even though like tiny little story bits are taking place, there is the big story at large as well. And then I really liked with it was so they've got three main characters, I guess 4 technically, and so one of them is the Witcher, Geralt, and But Geralt is Geralt, and they did not touch on like his backstory really. I mean, yes, they touched on his backstory because they cover a lot of what happened in his life over a few decades, but they didn't touch on they didn't really touch on like him being turned into a Witcher, his training as a Witcher, or anything like that. But what they did cover was one of the other main characters is Yennefer, who's a sorceress, and her storyline is awesome, in my opinion. I mean, I love the parts with Geralt as well, but I really liked the Yennefer storyline, and then they've got the Princess Ciri, which I didn't make it through Witcher 2. I don't know if she's in Witcher 2. I don't know if she's in Witcher 3. I assume that people who've played through all the Witcher games are going to know these people. I looked them up because I didn't know. But the Yennefer stuff is great. The Ciri stuff is great. The storyline with Ciri is great. And then what they've done is because because some of the Witcher books, which this is based off of, are short stories. Like instead of being a full on novel, they're little short stories. Hence the title, short stories, I guess. And so you get they witchers and sorceresses, or sorcerers, I guess, sorceresses, sorcerer, whatever they are, don't age like humans, and so um, Geralt is decades old, and and so like 30 years takes place over the 8 episodes, and so they've got part of the story is present day, and then part of the story overlaid with present day, very well done, is the events surrounding and leading up to the present day conflicts, and not what caused them or even what's going on with them, but how like Yennefer is sort of tangentially responsible for some of what's going down. How how Geralt is attached to Princess Ciri, who's like 14 or something. I don't know how old she's supposed to be. Um, and and just stuff like that. And it's really good. Spoilers. The only episode I thought was a little weak was episode where he goes dragon hunting. I like the stuff with Geralt and Yennefer. I just thought the dragon part of it was a little weak, and uh, I don't know how spoilery that is, but the other thing that is spoilery is that Geralt is bound to Princess Ciri, which is one of my favorite moments in the series was when they were bound together, and uh, and so it's very weird that Princess Ciri is searching for Geralt because of things that went down, and when she finally finds him, I found it to be a little anticlimactic because they just basically run into each other, and she literally runs up to him. And there was no conflict or any major thing going on. I mean, yes, there's a major thing going on, but there was no like for Geralt and Ciri at that moment, nothing. And I kind of felt that like I haven't read the books, so I don't know how it was supposed to go down, but I kind of felt like for television show wise, I might have changed that scene so that Geralt had to fight people for her because she is being hunted, um, or like. like even earlier in the previous uh, was it the previous episodes? Earlier in the episode, Princess Siri, who has powers, had to unleash her powers, and so I felt like maybe I would have combined those two scenes, and instead of just having some dudes that she knew attack her, I would have had the dudes that were hunting her attack her, and then she releases her power, but only after Geralt killed a bunch of them, and then was finally, succumbing to what had happened to him earlier in the episode, and maybe they were about to kill Geralt, and and then she would, I don't know, cover Geralt with her body and then release her power, killing the dudes before they could kill them, and then that was their first meeting in the woods. But yeah, that was just for me. For me, I would have changed that to be a little more dramatic than it was, I guess. But man, everything about that show has been really good. It looks, some of the special effects are a little weak, I felt. They've got these fawn guys and this or something. I don't remember what it's called. It's in the dragon episode, anyways. And I don't think their CGI is necessarily the best I've ever seen, but yeah, it was really good. So, all right. Well, with that, I am gonna call it a night. Or in this case, 2:15 a.m. because it took me that long to get to this point. Uh, Click leave a like, subscribe, share, and catch the next one. And I will talk to you later.